Mega Man Zero has a bit of BS, but this game is great. Okay, a lot of BS, but I love it, damn it. Hi, I'm Acolyte, and I love the Zero games, if it wasn't obvious from the profile picture. There is a lot to talk about and a lot to cover when it comes to these games, but I ain't trying to do all that since I don't want to edit a 50-minute video. Instead, we'll go over the important lore and game in a shorter style. We'll go over the story, gameplay, and bad parts about Zero 1. If you enjoy it, subscribe. I'm trying to hit 1K before I make my first decent video. With all that said, lore dump time. To understand why Zero is so awesome, we gotta start at the beginning. A long time ago, in a galaxy not so far away, we had two old farts fighting neck and neck to get their research proposals approved. Dr. Albert Wily wanted to make robots stronger and faster with his double gear system, turning them into heroes. Dr. Thomas Light wanted to give robots the ability of free thought to finally make himself because he can't. The board went with Light's idea instead. This angered Wily. So much so, bro turned into the biggest hater you've ever seen. He started stealing Dr. Light's robots and corrupted them to tarnish his image, deciding his new goal was world domination. Wily got his ass beat by Megaman each time he tried though. This caused Wily to use that degree he's got wasting away. I should probably do that too. So he started using his degree to create Zero, the ultimate weapon. Zero's original purpose was to destroy Dr. Light's creations, Megaman, and pass on robo-schizophrenia to anybody he came into contact with. This didn't end up happening because Wily is a shitty engineer and messed up with Zero's programming. This caused Zero to be disobedient and violent. Knowing he couldn't use Zero, Wily decides to seal him away with the Maverick virus and dies. At an unknown time in the future, X, the next iteration of Megaman, and Zero were discovered in nearby locations. The problem is, when they dug up Zero, he hadn't had his coffee yet, so he's still violent and disobedient. After sending in a squad to get wiped out because he's a great commander, this bald fuck Sigma decides to go in and fight Zero himself. Sigma proceeds to get fucked in the ass by a red Reploid until Zero's time of the month kicks in from all those years of being asleep. Sigma used this opportunity to face fuck Zero and destroy his beautiful blue crystal. This gets rid of Zero's evil tendencies for the time being, so Zero joins the Maverick Hunters, Sigma's crew of good guys. Here, he fights along X and they don't really do much. After bullshitting around for minimum wage for some time, robots start going Maverick around Zero and X, causing problems. Nobody can explain what's happening, so Zero and X go to investigate a few locations that have been hit by Maverick outbursts. Here, they end up meeting up with Sigma, who, surprise, he's now evil. When Sigma decided to punch Zero's blue crystal, he got robo-schizophrenia through contact instead, and is now spreading it around the world, causing all these attacks. Zero and X try to fend off Sigma, but they... don't really do much. After this, X and Zero go on to become top-class Maverick Hunters and stop Sigma, and ooh, there's no, it's just Sigma again. 6 Sigmas later, Zero realized that he and X don't really do much. So he decides to take his pay time off, says good luck X, and goes to sleep for the next 100 years. Until Capcom realized the X games made money, so they made 2 more games and retconned Zero's sealing to take place at the end after they're done with the money pot. They never stopped making X games. Zero decided to seal himself because he was the original carrier of robo-schizophrenia and felt responsible for the outbursts continuing to happen. By sealing himself away, he thought maybe the scientists could figure out a cure by studying his body. Through this came the development of cyber elves. Cyber elves are sentient computer programs that manifest in the real world as energy. They have their own personalities and uses, and have to be raised from little babies to adults. Did I mention they die after use? Because they do. The first ever cyber elf was known as the Mother Elf. Mother Elf over here was so strong she deleted the Maverick virus from the universe and helped X put a stop to the Maverick Wars once and for all. After this, humans decided to start being opinionated again since evil robots weren't running around killing them for fun. There were arguments about whether or not robots should retain the ability to think freely and coexist with humans for fear of another Maverick Wars incident happening again. One of the people leading this was Dr. Weil, who has no relation to Dr. Wily. Dr. Trafficone proposed Project El Piso, a unity between the Mother Elf and one Reploid King to control all other robots on the planet. At first, people had mixed feelings about this, so Dr. Pumpkinhead stole the Mother Elf and did a lot of fucked up shit. shit. After the new Maverick outbursts, the humans decided to approve his plan, so Dr. Weil began work on Project El Piso. Of course, Conehead had no intentions of doing the right thing. He really wanted to take over the world instead. So Dr. Weil enacts his plan and makes his super Reploid to control a mass army of robots known as golems and begin his reign of terror. The Elf Wars have begun. X decides to fight back, but he doesn't really do much. So he decides to wake Zero's ass up, and together they team up to defeat Weil and his evil army. After defeating his army, Zero looks at X and goes back to sleep because his job is done, what? X goes on to found Neo Arcadia, a utopia for robots and humans to live together in harmony and get away from the tragedies of the world. After the Elf Wars, human population got cut down by 60% and Reploids by 90%, putting both species in an endangered state with nothing else but to team up for a better tomorrow. For a while, things are good. So good you can imagine the humans living like those fatties from the WALL-E movie. We never actually see humans in this time period, so just go with it. Dome-like city structures were established. The capital of Neo Arcadia, the innermost dome itself, hosted about 20 million people. They could manipulate the weather, and things seemed promising. To help many of these advancements take place, Neo Arcadia started producing humans with altered DNA to help advancements in different fields like Reploid development. From X's DNA, the 4 Guardians were created with the purpose to restore water, atmosphere, and repopulate the land, making it habitable for humans. Finally, it was looking good for the planet and its future. And I'm sure everything would have been great if Capcom didn't have a game to sell. X mysteriously vanished one day, not wanting to worry the population. This was kept a secret by the higher-ups of Neo Arcadia, with only a select few knowing the truth. Having no leadership sent the capital into a state of confusion. To the regular populace, everything was great and their lives couldn't be better, but the way the humans and Reploids lived kept requiring more and more energy. Energy that Neo Arcadia just didn't have. To remedy this comes CL, a genetically altered human specializing in Reploid development and a prodigy even among her peers. CL theorizes that by coming up with a replacement for X, maybe he'd be able to help them through the energy crisis. This gets greenlit, so she makes a perfect replica of Megaman X. This copy of X ends up doing nothing good. He gets pampered and treated like the legendary hero himself, but doesn't have any of the memories or experience to back up that praise. This led him into a false sense of security, thinking he's better than everyone and that he's infallible. Copy X, having a strong sense of protecting humans, decides the quickest solution to their problem is to start labeling regular Reploids as Gone Maverick and recycling them so less energy is being consumed. This goes on for a while until CL gets fed up with her creation. She decides to leave Neo Arcadia and form the Resistance, a safe haven for Reploids being persecuted by the now evil city-state, but they don't really do much. The Resistance gets completely slammed by Neo Arcadia's titan of a military, so bad that things were looking worse and worse each day. Until CL decides they must search these old ruins, rumored to harbor a once legendary Reploid that fought alongside X. Their only chance to keep on going. Their hope. See, the story in Mega Man Zero is told in a not so interesting way. If you just look at it for what it is, characters usually talk across the screen, don't move much. Aside from the intro and end, there aren't a lot of cutscenes and the characters have static profile pictures. But if you set that aside, the story itself is metal and good. CL takes a team of Reploids with her to an abandoned laboratory where they once did research on Zero's mind and body. As they make their way through the ruins, the team is being chased down by Pantheons, foot soldiers of Neo Arcadia, and they manage to trip the alarm system of the lab. This causes the Golem defense force to wake up and start chasing after the Resistance. Just to put into perspective how horrible the power difference is, one Golem mows down a whole group of soldiers with just one laser. Little by little, CL makes her way to the innermost chamber with 2 other Reploids and her cyber-elf Passy. After reaching the door, they arrive, finding our hero broken down and battered from a century of being sealed alone, with nobody around him. Forgotten to time lay Zero, the once legendary Reploid. As the Pantheons run into the room, they make short work of the Resistance soldiers, leaving CL and Passy alone. Passy tells CL to use her power and awaken Zero. CL hesitates on this request, but finally pulls the trigger. After sending Passy to her grave in a short-lived sad moment, starts the rebirth of a hero. See what I did there? I used the name of the title. It's pretty clever, right? If you're a fan of the X Games, you're probably upset Zero lost his green crystal nipples and are confused by this design. The Zero games were developed by Inti Creates, and is its own series unrelated to the X Games aside from character tie-ins. To give the series its own look, Inti came up with their own art style for characters, leaving the bulky mechanical styles in the past with the X Games and moving closer to the humanoid designs we see in Megaman Legends, as Inti felt eventually the timeline will lead to Legends. Zero looks a lot more human in his new look. His buster isn't attached to his arm anymore, he's dropped the bulky plates in favor of a vest, boots, and gloves, and ooh, I love it. That's right, I'm a fan of the Zero design over the X series, sue me. At this point, we have full control over Zero. We can run, jump, dash, and use our buster, the usual Mega Man stuff. First things first, open up your menu and switch your attack type to type B. If you play on anything else, you're wrong. Switch it off to type C, bro. Switch it off. Put it back to type B. Put it back to type B right now. 0-1 is home to a lot of misconceptions when it comes to the combat. I've heard that you need to grind before it gets good, and then see people just spam the Saber's charge attack only once it's unlocked. Now if you play like this, you better stop! But what if I told you there's a cooler way to play? See, Mega Man combat before Zero still followed the classic style of charge up your buster, fire, and dodge. Meaning it's not very good. Inti Creates decided they wanted their game to have fun combat, so they marched on over to Capcom, looked at what they were doing with Devil May Cry, and put that into a platformer. Mega Man fans mostly play this like X's weird cousin instead of trying to learn the game's combat, and I think that's where a lot of the preference for those games comes from. X games are straightforward and there isn't anything crazy about the combat, they just match the weakness to the boss, shoot, and that's it. In Zero, the game uses a hit priority system. This just means certain moves will trigger more or less invincibility frames of a boss, allowing you to combo certain moves and weapons into each other. This lets you get off so much more damage than just letting one charge attack fly. Hell, there's even secret tech with that we can get into. 0-1 has the simplest version of this system. All moves are assigned either to be in the light or strong hits category. If your move is in the light hits category, it doesn't trigger a boss's iframes. If your move is in the strong hit category, then after you use it, you set off the boss's invincibility and have to wait before attacking again. This means you can chain some weapons together and create a combo that has a start and end point. Pretty cool, right? This is where you infinite a boss in the corner till it dies. The problem with the system is that Inti Creates threw this in here and forgot to mention it exists, so I don't blame the casual player for not knowing about it, but damn it, it's awesome and I'm gonna talk about it. There are a lot of cool things you can do with the system that people don't give it credit for or don't mess around with because they think it's too hard, and there's just so much more to the game here than trying to play it like an X game. With a little bit of effort, you can do cool stuff like this too. What were we doing again? Oh right, escorting the person that woke us up to safety. So Zero takes CL to the exit, gunning down everything in our path to make sure we make it okay. We end up at the bottom of a tunnel. CL recommends we take the transfer back to the resistance base, a terminal of sorts. Seeing as how the way is blocked off, there's nowhere for us to go until she gets manhandled by a golem. Cue our first boss fight. The Golem is a good introductory boss because it teaches the player to move around the arena, how key positioning can be as you can influence its attacks and can only hit its head for now. After dicking around for a bit, a mysterious buddy that totally isn't X appears on FaceTime and says, "Make sure to subscribe." He throws us the Z-Saber, Zero's iconic blade from the past, and now we can defeat the Golem. One-shotting this thing, we save CL and she thanks Zero for help. Zero, being asleep for so long, has amnesia, so he can't even remember anything, and asks what if he's not the Zero she's looking for. CL has no other options, so we just go back to the base with her as we have nothing else to do anyway. After each mission, we're given a ranking depending on how we did. While I don't hate the ranking system, I do think some of the metrics it goes by are stupid. You're graded based on your time, how much damage you took, how many enemies you defeated, did you use Cyber Elves, and did you use any retries. All of these are okay except for the Cyber Elf system. This system is the biggest pile of crap that plagues the game. So normally through a Mega Man title, you go through the stages, explore, get your upgrades, become stronger, and beat the game. In the Zero series, if you want to upgrade Zero, you have to interact with the Elf system. The Elf system is so poorly implemented in the first game, you lose points on your rank for using elves, and this compounds the more elves you use, even allowing you to score negative points because of this. Rank doesn't mean much in the first game aside from flex, so if this is your first playthrough, I would say fuck the ranking and use the elves if you need to. The problem is that even if you decide to use the elves, you have to go digging around for E-crystals, the game's currency which is in damn near short supply everywhere. They really weren't kidding when they said we were going through an energy crisis, huh? Elves come in one of 3 tiers. If they're tier 1, you can use them immediately. These are the weakest effects though. If you want to use a tier 2 or 3 elf, you have to feed these hungry fuckers a ludicrous amount of crystals, which will see you grinding if you want to use these bad boys. This normally causes me to avoid the system. You could play the game on casual scenario mode if you want to use them and avoid the grinding, but that unlocks everything off rip, which can take away from the progression, so you do you. So, back at the Resistance base, CL will shove their safety and impending doom on you. Zero, being the good guy that he is, decides to help the Resistance anyways. The Resistance is in a horrible spot. You can take a look around, talk to the Reploids, and you can just quickly tell these guys aren't up for the fight they picked. We've got a child, a grandpa, Choji that won't get up unless we give him E-crystals. No chance, buddy, go grab your own. The rest of the base is vacant for now. You can talk to Alouette or Andrew to get some backstory for the other characters, along with some world building on how Reploids are closer to humans now than they've ever been, and a lot of it is cool. CL asks us to help her destroy the Reploid in charge of the recycling center, the place where innocent Reploids are being disposed of currently. By getting rid of the Reploid that runs the place, we'll be saving countless innocent lives and putting a stop to Neo Arcadia's robot gas chamber. This game is so fucked up when you take a second to stop and think about what's going on. See, Reploids in Neo Arcadia aren't even treated as citizens anymore, even though they have a Reploid running the place. If you're not human, you're getting screwed over. Now, the mission structure in Megaman Zero isn't anything to write home about. They still have the stage select like other titles, but you can't see an image of the stage or the boss, so there's no way to tell what you're picking aside from the description. Each first mission will have you take on a Mudos Reploid in an effort to help out the Resistance, retrieving data for them, taking over factories, and destroying supply trains to the city. Are we sure we're the good guys here? This will have us fight underlings of the 4 Guardians for our first run through. The bosses in this game have some funny names. Guard Erotic, Asura Basura, Herculeus Anus, and Maha Ganesharif. Right. We go through a desert, hidden base underwater, on a runaway train, and back to the lab. After we complete 4 missions, Neo Arcadia will send along a giant mechanoloid to try and destroy our base. Your job is to destroy the robot first. After this happens, CL expresses some regret with what's going on and feels partly responsible for the things happening, but doesn't really elaborate as to why. Each mission we take on assists the Resistance, and a cool thing some people might not notice is for each mission that has you saving Resistance members, it actually repopulates the base with the same soldiers you saved, which is a good way to show our impact. After we make quick work of the Mudos Reploids and other bosses from Neo Arcadia, Zero's name starts spreading, and you'll get a second trip through each area that has us fighting the 4 Guardians now instead. They're an elite group of Reploids made from the DNA of X. Each Guardian leads a different branch of Neo Arcadia's military, and they each believe they'll be the one to take you down. They all sport 3 health bars and have their own personalities. They're a lot more unique than the Mudos Reploids in terms of their dialogue, and you'll be seeing a lot of them, so get used to it. After checking the egos of the 4 Guardians, you send them packing, and we go to the base only to realize we're being invaded by Neo Arcadia again. Here, we lose a lot of soldiers in the process, and Inti crates really went off showing the dead soldiers all over the base. It's kinda crazy when you take it all in and actually look at this stuff. Once we throw off the invaders, CL starts panicking and getting depressed, blaming everything that's happened to the Resistance on herself, saying if she didn't do certain things, then this wouldn't have happened. Being confused as to what she's complaining about, Zero says he'll take the fight to Neo Arcadia and kill X himself to save everybody. With a little help from our cyber elf friend that totally isn't X, oh wait, it is X, we set forth to Neo Arcadia. Neo Arcadia is this game's version of a castle stage. It's split up into 3 parts: the Neo Arcadia Shrine, Neo Arcadia, and Neo Arcadia's core. The shrine section is cool. There's a decent amount of platforming through this area. It's used disappearing blocks, so that's something different. We fight 3 different bosses here, and after all 3, we're on to Neo Arcadia. Here, we climb up a giant elevator and fight the Rainbow Devil on top, which isn't a crazy boss. The elevator portion uses moving platforms and blocks with shifting electricity on them to constantly keep you moving, which I think is a good thing. Before we can proceed, CL somehow teleports into Neo Arcadia unscathed. She decides now is a great time to tell Zero that the person he thought was X this whole time was actually just a copy of his old friend that she created because they had no leader. After apologizing for creating a bastardization of his best buddy, Zero says it's fine and he'll deal with it because the man still has amnesia and probably doesn't even remember anything about X yet. Then we get to everyone's favorite Mega Man gimmick, the boss rush. At this point, you should be well versed in the combat, have all the elemental weaknesses, and upgraded the weapons you plan on using. The bosses should be a lot easier on the second run through, as this is the point you're at your strongest. After making short work of the Mudos Reploids again, it's on to the 4 Guardians. Harpooya, Leviathan, and Fafnir all go down and run away the same as before after they talk some crap to you. But Phantom decides to kill himself and take you with him. He fails, and you exit out the room. Some cool lore, Phantom is Inti Create's favorite guardian and was originally going to serve as Zero's rival, as he looks somewhat like Zero, but they scrapped this idea and instead felt like it'd be cool for him to blow himself up as a show of loyalty. They also didn't think they were going to make another Zero game, so RIP Phantom. Finally, we make our way to the top, to the moment this game hasn't really been building up to, our final confrontation with X, or should I say, a clone of X. As we make our way into X's chambers, the three Guardians decide to try and stop us in one last-ditch effort, only to be called off by X. He decides to gloat over how he's accomplished a utopia for humans, something Zero or the original X could never do, only for Zero to run the ones for his boy. This utopia he created is an illusion, and a utopia for only some of the population isn't a true utopia at all. This annoys Copy X, and we throw down for the finale. His first phase isn't anything to write home about if you throw him in the corner and just wail on him. If not, you'll see him flying around, using the elements with his different forms, and even healing back to full if you let him. This fight is cool. It uses gimmicks the original X had and serves as a way for Zero to confront how different the world is now, from serving alongside X to fighting a messed up clone of him and putting an end to the once great city his friend built up. After trumping his first phase, Zero scoffs and tells this punk how weak he is. Copy X being the insecure baby, he decides to use his final form. This fight can be a bit rough if you don't know what you're doing. After a bit of elbow grease and horrible gamer posture, he'll go down just like the rest. Upon his defeat, Copy X is forced to face his failures, thinking he was the hero of this story. This fight against X's clone brought back some of Zero's memories, how what made the original X so strong was his cowardice. The ability to constantly second guess himself is what made him a great leader. Baby Boy in Blue tries to take you with him, attempting to blow both of you up. Zero escapes luckily, leaving Neo Arcadia's leader to his ruin and the city to their fate. Zero ends up in the desert, face planting into the sand when the real X shows up to confide in Zero. He tells Zero how he's tired and doesn't have the will to keep fighting for so many years, as we did leave X alone to solve most things for around 200 years at the minimum. Zero tells his old friend not to worry and he'll handle things from here, as a legion of Neo Arcadia's forces try to overpower Zero, as it's him alone versus them. Zero being Zero cuts them all down and continues the endless fight that he and X started all those years ago. Inti Creates was unsure of if they'd make a sequel or not to the Zero games, so they left the ending a bit open just like I'm doing with this video. The Zero series isn't perfect by any means, but it's a game series that's special to me and brings an enjoyment I don't get from other games, even on replays, and yes, even the first entry. I had a lot of fun putting this together. While this is my first attempt at a video like this, so if I ruined the game for you, or you hated it, that's okay too. You can let me know in the comments. If you did like it, I'd really appreciate you subscribing to the channel to let me know you enjoy videos like this. Thank you for watching, and have an amazing day. Stay safe, friends.